What if people use blades to tear through the genitals of young girls? What if they use their twisted culture and religion as an excuse? What if they'd already cut over 200 million girls worldwide? What if I told you this was already starting to sweep the West? What if I told you hundreds of thousands of girls are at risk in the U.S.? Worried? You should be. It's called female genital mutilation, and it's here in the United States. Your neighborhood could be next.
I'm Courtney Renee, this is InfoWars, and FGM is something you need to know about. You've seen InfoWars share stories on FGM before, but it's not old news. It's a third world problem in a first world nation.
It's popping up in England, Germany, the UK, Wales, Sweden. Young girls in Sweden are even being advised to put a spoon in the crotch of their pants. That way they can alert authorities via medical detectors if they feel they're being transported abroad to have female genital mutilation performed on them. This adds up to a tally of over 200 million victims worldwide. It's even touched the United States in a big way. Its presence has tripled in the United States since 1990, leaving 500,000 young girls at risk. But how big is a 500,000? Well, it's like filling up a football stadium 5 times over. It's typically practiced on girls who are 4 years old, all the way up to the age of 12. Sometimes it happens within a few days of birth. Now the numbers are bad, but the procedure is even more horrific. Female genital mutilation, FGM for short, is defined as a procedure that removes partially or completely the female genitalia or causes harm to the genitals that no medical purpose. There are 4 types of female genital mutilation. Type 1 starts by removing the skin around the clitoris. The procedure then ramps up and takes a little bit more in Type 2. Type 3 is the partial or total removal of the external genitalia. Everything's gutted, it's then stitched up with a tiny hole left for urine and the menstrual cycle to pass through. This is called infibulation. Type 4 is more of a free-for-all. It can include any of the following: piercing, pricking, incising, stretching, cauterization or burning, scraping, cutting, or the use of corrosive substances to make the vagina bleed or tighten. One woman from Gambia describes her experience with FGM. The cutting happens very fast. What the cutter does is hold onto your clitoris to make sure she gets that and scrapes everything else that comes along with it. All of the labia if they can. I fought the whole time. This is typically performed by laymen, not medical professionals, and they'll use anything, a knife, a blade, whatever is sharp. And given the unsterile conditions in which it's often performed, the girl runs the risk of contracting HIV. This sadistic practice doesn't end when the blade is laid down. While these images are of an 18-month-old girl in Indonesia receiving FGM, the trauma will extend far beyond her infancy. There are side effects in the short and long term. Short-term effects include pain, hemorrhaging, shock, even death. In the long term, there's cysts, problems with intercourse, chronic pelvic infection, and complications with birth that significantly increase the chances of a stillbirth. There is also the daily physical reminder from seeing the scarring and leftover wounds to reliving the pain every time a woman uses the restroom. It's like an open wound rubbed with salt. Aside from the physical aspect, FGM causes psychological trauma as well. Listen to F.A. Cole, a woman who underwent FGM over 33 years ago.
It's a ritual that's done on these girls, and they brainwash you until if you talk about it, you'll die. And that's why people are scared to... Sorry, I get panic attacks. That's why people are afraid to talk about it, because...
But what's going on in Detroit? Well, just last year, it became the poster child for genital mutilation, as it marked the first federal prosecution of FGM in the United States. It was here that 2 Minnesota mothers brought their daughters to this man, Dr. Faroudin Attar, and his wife's Birani Clinic in Livonia, Michigan. Once there, this doctor, Dr. Jumana Nagarwala, is accused of performing FGM on 6 girls. She contends that she performed a custom from her Muslim sect, the Indian-based Dawoodi Bohra. Medical exams showed the girls' genitals did not appear normal and had been afflicted with alterations, removal, incisions, or a small tear. One girl said the doctor had pinched her on the place where she goes pee. Authorities believe upwards of 100 girls have been victimized in a 12-year-long operation. The 3 doctors were indicted on charges of FGM and conspiracy. According to the indictment, the 3 doctors instructed others to make false statements to prosecutors. They are also accused of lying to investigators. Even though FGM is growing abroad and here in the United States, the legal landscape is a far cry from where it should be. Globally, not much is being done. It wasn't until 2012 that the United Nations passed a resolution classifying FGM as an irreversible human rights violation. However, this resolution was non-binding. In the United States, FGM was outlawed in 1996. Then, in 2013, a law was passed prohibiting vacation cutting. This criminalized transporting someone under 18 to another country for the purpose of FGM. But why is it rarely prosecuted? Well, prosecutors usually defer to state law. In the absence of a genital mutilation law, perpetrators are charged with a lesser crime, like child abuse or assault. This makes FGM a crime without a just punishment, and unfortunately, the states are not picking up the slack. Only 25 states have laws prohibiting FGM, but prosecution depends on certain circumstances. And while punishments can be as severe as 30 years in prison and a $250,000 fine, perpetrators can still slip through the cracks of the legal system. Even more, just half the states still have absolutely no laws regarding FGM.
Is FGM in Africa, a Muslim, or an immigration problem? The answer is yes. Africa has its issues with female genital mutilation. In Somalia, upwards of 98% of women have received the procedure. But it is true that some of these countries across the FGM belt in Africa are Christian-dominated, so it's not exclusively an Islam problem. When it comes to Islam, people are quick to say because FGM is not specifically spoken about in the Quran, it cannot be attributed to the faith. What they fail to mention is that FGM is supported by modern-day leaders in the faith and the religion overall. Put the fault on religion or culture. The choice is yours. The key takeaway is FGM is a violent practice that must end. Fact: increased immigration from these areas in Africa and from the Muslims who enable this practice to continue are causing the numbers here to swell in the United States. What happens when America is no longer a true safe space? Most girls who have suffered genital mutilation are from immigrant families. If current trends continue, the number of girls and women subjected to FGM will increase significantly over the next 15 years. Why doesn't FGM get talked about more? It's because of virtue signaling and things like the Me Too movement. It's trite whining. It's toxic feminism's latest beard, masking real violence against women. Getting grabbed by the you-know-what is peanuts compared to what genital mutilation is. But FGM doesn't get marches, pink hats, hashtags, or celebrity magazine covers. Why? Because it fails to suffice PC culture. Safe spacers everywhere would squeal. Most importantly, it exposes the folly of the globalist open border mentality. Legal or illegal, some people should not be here. Don't let the feminists fool you. Our men may grab you by the genitals, other countries' men will slice you by the genitals. Leonardo da Vinci said in his memoirs, "I awoke only to find the rest of the world asleep. They're coming. Let's just hope we're all awake in time."